uh, this is Baba's favorite pastime. You know, he's standing on the land of reality, and before, right on the borderline, and before him is the infinite ocean of illusion. And Baba's standing there with a fishing pole, and very methodically he puts the bait on the hook, and he casts his line out into the ocean. And every once in a while he waits patiently until there's a little tug on the line, and then he kind of very gently pulls it in. And some people are like really in the depths of the ocean. They're in depression and despair. Some people are kind of floating aimlessly on the surface. He pulls those gradually in. Some people are so starved that they swallow the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. But anyway, so this is one of his great enjoyments, is reeling us in. And so he reeled Sue Chapman in a very surprising and interesting way. Sue is, she's from England. She's been with Baba, I think, since the 70s, right? Early 80s. She knows, I think, of all the Baba lovers in England pretty much, and all the Baba groups, but she's primarily connected with the center in London. So she's going to tell us her story, and feel free to ask her questions and everything. I mean, it'll be informal. And so anybody that can, anybody that thinks of something along the way, don't hesitate. So I'm going to let her, we have only one place here, so she's going to take this chair and I'm going to sit outside. Away from the camera. So here she is. Oh yeah, just remind you, she has a British accent, so we're going to have subtitles for anybody that needs them.
We need them for Marta.
Okay. Well, hey, Happy New Year to everybody. You must all be insomniacs to stay up this late to listen to this tale.
Some people are in California, you know.
Oh, well, that's great. That's really
got it
good.
easy.
Well, it's lovely. I can see.
And some people are in India, and it's just morning for them.
Oh,
nothing late about it.
Good morning to India and all people, wherever you are. It's lovely that you're here. So as Jeff said, feel free to chip in, although I won't necessarily be able to see hands being raised, but just jump in and shout with your voice if I can't see you. I'll do the best I can to go through the very early bits quickly. They're relevant, but not the juice of the story. I was raised in a Methodist family, and as a very young child, I really loved Christ and wanted to know more about him. But when I was about 7 years old, they started giving out cigarette cards with all the prophets on them. And I was collecting them with great enthusiasm. And we came around to Easter time, and I was given a card of Jesus on the cross, and they told me he died. And as a young child of 7, I was heartbroken, and I thought, well, that's it, I missed him. And so I put God onto the back burner and never gave him another thought for a very, very long time. But I did, in my sort of 10, 11, 12-year age group, have a lot of out-of-body experiences and saw ghosts and had a very strong feeling that reincarnation was a reality. So I came with a very open mind to spirituality later. I first heard Baba's name when I was 17 in a Melanie song, and it just had one line in it: May Baba lives amongst us, candles in the rain. And it was such a cryptic comment that it was like an earworm that just went round and round in my head, and I had no idea what it meant, never found out. Fast forward till I was 26, and a friend who'd been to Baba's 69 Darshan with the English group of 7 other people, felt that he recognized something about me as being to do with Baba. He didn't really know what that was, but he thought he would try and proselytize. And because I was the biggest cynic of all times in my early 20s, I was quite a tough cookie, as they say. I was very resistant, and he'd given me mastery of consciousness, and I passed it on to a friend. And then he thought, well, she loves music, so I'll give her the Who album. And I was teaching a student who was a Who fan, so I gave her the album, and he was getting very frustrated by that. Anyhow, the years moved on, and as they moved on, I got more and more disillusioned with life entirely. And Baba talks about divine desperateness as being the pivotal point for our spiritual search, you know, where either God is a hidden reality or everything is meaningless. And I was experiencing everything as meaningless and actually feeling deeply depressed, profoundly depressed. I had a marriage breakup. I'd lost my job. I'd moved away from my home. I had no money, you know, all the things that everybody's gone through, you know, probably at some point in their life. And yet I felt that there was a hidden reality. So I started gambling on all kinds of mad ideas. You know, if I try this, X will happen. If I try Y, you know, and I actually put myself twice in some very, well, no, more than twice, in life-threatening situations. And by Baba's grace, retrospectively, clearly, he was not going to let me be that foolish. And put the brakes on at really key moments. There are other stories to do with that, but it would take too long to explain. So I was down and out in London, true. And an old college tutor rang me up. She was an Indian woman, and she said, I'm going to India. We'd studied textile art together. Would you like to come? I want to retrace my family roots and go to artist workshops, and let's see what we can learn by traveling around the country. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. When are you going? And she said, Thursday. So I said, okay, I'm up for that. And it was midwinter. So I raided my sister's wardrobe for some summer clothes. She was 3 sizes bigger than me. And I packed this tiny little knapsack and met her at the airport, my friend at the airport. And off we went with her and her husband. And we landed in Delhi and we got Indian rail passes. But just before we were leaving, the friend who had been trying to tell me about Baba heard that we were going to India, and he knew if he said anything about Meher Baba, I wouldn't listen. So he said, I'd like you to look up an old Indian friend of mine. His name's R.D.K. Rani. If I give you his address, will you take a photograph of my wife and children and show him and tell him my story of what's unfolded for me since 1969? And I said, Dudley, we're going to Delhi. There's no way we'll be anywhere near Maharashtra, you know. No, he said, take the address. It doesn't matter. So to please him, I just stuffed it in the back of my wallet and never gave it another thought. In fact, if I had a thought, it was, that's the last thing I'll do. But Baba being Baba, in control of the driving seat and every other seat on the planet, he would send us from one craft workshop artist to another. And over the course of 2 months, traveling hundreds of miles some days, maybe 20 or 40 on other days, we made a journey which was almost identical to one of the Blue Bus tours, coming southwest slowly, bit by bit, through India. going to this workshop and that workshop. And when I look back, the thing that I see was Barbara's preparing me for what was to come, was that because my friends were leading this trip, it was their inspiration, their determination. I completely surrendered every day. If they said, we want to go here, I went, fine. I want to see this person, fine. I just let go, let go, let go, let go until there was almost nothing, you know, except myself standing in these very large clothes that I was wearing all the time that didn't fit me. And that was kind of like another loss of self. It was like, it doesn't matter who I am or what I look like. So off we went. And one day we'd been to Ajanta and Ellora, and I had found both incredibly moving in my own way, but I couldn't. The caves, yeah. Oh yes, they're in Aurangabad. For those of you that haven't been to India, probably about, would you say, Jeff, 40 kilometers or so from Meherazad?
Maybe a
little
maybe
bit
a couple
more,
hours north.
couple of hours. It must be more. Yes, it must be more. You're right. And we were in a hotel there, and my friends wanted to go to another workshop, and by then I'd been doing that for 2 months, and I thought, you know, I think I'll rest up today. And when I was hanging around in the hotel, I saw a map of Maharashtra, and for some reason, the word Ahmednagar jumped out from the map. And I thought, well, blow me, here we are, so close to this place my friend had mentioned. And he wanted me to go and see his friend. You know, what harm could that cause? You know, it's just a little trip. I asked the man in the hotel reception, you know, is Ahmednagar far? And he said, oh, it's just a bus ride away. He didn't say how far. So I thought, well, I'll just set off to the bus station. So I left all my luggage in the hotel, packed, you know, no more than a couple of, probably 20 or 30 rupees, you know, nothing, no passport, no food, no water. I went to the bus station and I asked a chap for the bus for Ahmednagar. And he said, oh, sorry, madam, it's just gone. So I thought, well, not meant to be. And I went and sat on a wall and I was eating an apple, minding my own business. And suddenly this little man came running up to me and he grabbed me by the sleeve and he said, madam, Naga bus has not gone. You come now. And he just pulled me and dragged me down the road and pushed me onto this bus to Ahmednagar. So, que sera, what will be, will be. So I'm riding on the bus to Ahmednagar, wondering how long the journey would take, and an hour passes and another hour passes, and maybe at about 2 hours and a bit, we stop on the side of the road and I asked somebody, oh, is this Ahmednagar? And they said, oh, no, madam, only chai. And I was like, oh, Lordy, this is the chai stop. We've still got a long way to go. So back on the bus, and it must have been nearly another hour and a half. I would say in total, maybe 3.5 hours. And by the time I reached Ahmednagar, it was close to 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, my friend had told me his place he'd visited was very simple. In 1969, he said, there's not much there, you know, it's just a little town. Well, by 83, it was already bustling. And I could look around and see, you know, still the street signs were in Marathi. And I asked a couple of people, showed them the address. Do you know this place? Do you know this man? Nobody could help me. So I set off walking. And after some time, I came to a building which was Akbar Press. And at that time, it's been demolished now, there was a sign outside, and I can't just remember all the words on it, but Meher was one of them. It may have been called Meher Colony back then. I don't know. Do you remember, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, that's where Mayor Colony was. I bet
Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what it said on the street. And I looked at the address, and he'd given me Avatar Mayor Barber Trust Office. So I said, oh, well, there's Meher in there. Maybe they'll know where the Meher Trust Office is. So I went into the compound, and there was a lady sweeping, and she also grabbed me. This was a day for being grabbed, pulled me inside the building, took me through to a bedroom where there was a little old Indian lady who was clearly partially disabled, and she was sitting up in bed with this big beaming smile. I didn't know who she was. I said to her, I'm trying for a friend to find a man called Adi Kairani who lives at this address. And I showed her this note, and she said, no, you'll be too late. You'll be way too late if you stop and talk to me. You have to go now. And I didn't know what this was all about. And then in Marathi, she called the servant back in and told her to put me in a rickshaw and take me to Meherazad. I didn't know that was happening at the time. She just pulled me outside, bundled me in a rickshaw, and the next thing I was riding in the rickshaw out of Ahmednagar down the road. And now we're 3:30 in the afternoon, and I'm thinking, oh, I left Aurangabad before 11 o'clock, and it's now 3:30. I'm not going to get back before dark, and I've no idea where I'm going. And each time I thought rationally, I would call it a wave would wash over me. Don't worry, this will be fine. So I just went with the flow of it, and we bounced down the road in the rickshaw. When we reached the place where you could see Baba's tower near the Samadhi with the rainbow flag, the rickshaw driver got very excited on my behalf, pointed to the flag, and he was very happy and smiling. And I smiled back thinking, I have no idea what he's pointing to. It could be the moon for all I know. And we went past it. We sailed on past and on into Arangown. And I thought, well, what was that all about? Then were we there? Where are we going? And then we come all the way back on the other side of the railway track up the hill, and I'm approaching this building with a flag on. Still have no idea what that means. Wonder if Adi Kairani lives there. And he pulls up at the back gate of the old water tower. And this is tricky if people haven't been to India, but it's the old accommodations where all the Mandali resided during the 30s and 40s and 50s, I think. But it's not in sight of the Samadhi building. So to me, I'd come out upside a big concrete building with gates. I didn't know what it was. He stopped the rickshaw, and he was very happy because he brought me where he was supposed to bring me. So he smiled a lot and gestured for me to get out the rickshaw because I was here. And again, this feeling of, this is insane. I'm in the middle of nowhere and he's telling me to get out. So I turn to him and I say, don't leave, please don't leave, stay. Like he was, I don't know what. I knew he didn't understand, but I just couldn't think what to say. So he smiled and I set off walking forward, and I hadn't gone 20 yards, and around the back of the building, coming in front of my sight line, I see a group of Indian ladies, some in saris, some in Punjabi outfits, and little children running around them. Behind them, I see a mixture of Indian men, and I'm to myself remarking that there were Sikhs and Muslims and Hindus. I've been traveling a long time in India by then, and it was a very unusual group of people to see that, because in amongst them were a small number, maybe 15 or so Westerners, and I'd hardly seen a Westerner in my travels at all. I was, wow, what's this? 50 people in the middle of nowhere, all sorts of people. Who are they? What are they doing? Well, it's some kind of private party. So they passed me by and they moved down to an amphitheater. And I am thinking, well, there's a crowd of people. At least one of them must know R.D.K. Irani. So maybe I'll find him there. And I'll wait till they'll get settled down and I'll ask them. So I went and sat at the very back of the amphitheater, fairly close to a Western couple, but not right in their face because I didn't know anybody at that point and I was feeling a bit self-conscious, to say the least. I don't know whether I'm going too slowly or gabbling. So if anybody's having trouble hearing me, just say, oh, I got a thumbs up. That's thank you. Before I could pause for breath, a piece of music that I knew very well from my childhood came over the loudspeakers. It was the Skater's Waltz, and I'm not even sure who wrote the Skater's Waltz. I think it might have been Tchaikovsky, but those of you who are good musicians, it sort of goes la, 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 la. And what do I see appear on the stage in front of me but a Western woman in a pink ballet tutu, pink satin slippers, and she's doing classical ballet on the stage. Now, I tell you, at that point, I didn't know whether I was on this earth or another planet altogether. So I'm just shaking my head and thinking, have I got heat stroke? I hadn't eaten, I hadn't drunk all day. I was just in another world in my head. However, the two people sitting next to me had noticed I'd arrived and they started asking me questions. So the first question they asked, which you would do with pilgrims, is, when did you get here? And I say, 5 minutes ago. And then they said, how long are you staying? And I said, 5 or 10 minutes. Well, no pilgrim comes to Meherazad for 5 or 10 minutes. So they were a little bit confused at that point. I wasn't. It seemed normal to me. So then something else happened on the stage and their attention was caught and I sat back again and that little skit finished. And then they turned to me again and they said, where did you come from? And I said, Aurangabad. What does this woman come from Aurangabad for 10 minutes for? And then I volunteered. I said, I'm looking for a man called R.D.K. Irani. Do you know him? And there was this deathly silence. Now, what my friend in England didn't know, because he was out of the loop, was that R.D. had died 2 years previously. Oh. So they didn't know what to say in that circumstance. And I could see they were confused. So I said nothing. And then something else happened on the stage and they whispered to each other a little bit. And then again, they turned to me and they said, do you know where you are? And I said, no, I've just come on a rickshaw from Armanaga. And they went, oh, God, oh no, oh. And then they went quiet. And something else happened on the stage. And then they were furiously whispering to each other. And then they sort of moved closer and grabbed my sleeve. Like, this is the third time in the day someone's got hold of me and is not going to let me go anywhere I might want to go. So it's like I'm there and they've got me. And they said, do you know about Mayor Barber? And I said, well, yeah, I've heard his name before. They said, do you know this is where he's buried? And I said, no. And they said, well, look, and they turned around. And it was the first time I turned around and looked behind me to where the Samadhi was. And I just said, oh, like, anyhow, a little time went by. This actually, I found out afterwards was Mera's birthday celebration that they were having on the hill a little early for Christmas time, just before Christmas. And they wanted to see the whole performance. They told me in those brief moments that Adi Kairani was no longer with us, but would I please stay and have tea with them? Well, to an English girl who hadn't eaten or drunk all day long, that was like the best thing I could possibly hear that day. So I said, absolutely, that would be really, really nice. And then maybe you can help get me back to Armanaga. And they would just be amused at that thought. But anyhow, they said, well, you know, when we finish the program, we're just going to pay our respects up the hill and then we'll take you down for tea. And I said, oh, fine, I'll go along with that. I'm, you know, no problem. So we turned around when the program was over and started heading towards the Samadhi, and a line was forming of people who were paying their respects before they left the hill. In front of us came, I found out afterwards, Don Stevens, and because he was European and I was European, they grabbed him and they tried to tell him, this lady's just arrived and she doesn't know, and they couldn't get out what I didn't know. And Don said, I'm so sorry, sister, but I've got to catch a plane in Pune. I can't stop now. And he vanished. And they sort of went, oh, and then we moved forward a bit further. And then Erich came into their path and they said, Erich, this person's just arrived. She's just arrived. I mean, she's just arrived. You know, and they were saying it like that. And he was like, oh, very good. And you know how calm and sweet and benign he was. Well, let's get in line. Let's take her in line, you know. So before I knew it, Erich was in line somewhere, and then this couple, and then me, and probably a few more people. And so I thought, well, I don't want to upset anybody. So I started focusing really carefully on what they did because I didn't want to be disrespectful or rude. And I was watching, they all inched forward and some of them touched the wood at the doorway and then they stepped inside and I didn't see what happened in there, but they weren't in there very long. And then they came out backwards and then they turned around and went somewhere else. So I thought, oh, well, that's really easy. I can do that. It's quick. You know, it's some kind of temple. I really, you know, just wanted to be respectful. I'll never do this justice. My turn came and I stepped over the threshold and I had a momentary shock because the first thing I saw was the photograph of Baba that used to be in the Samadhi where his hands are like this and he's beaming. And that photograph used to be on the wall in my friend Dudley's house, who'd been trying to get me to Baba all those years. And in my head, there was this moment of, part of me wanted to say, you bugger, you tricked me into coming, you know, but there wasn't time for that. It was like, oh my God, this is his master's place where he came for darshan. So I got down on my knees and the thought in my head was, if Dudley were here, he'd want to give you his love. I put my head on the Samadhi. I don't even know how long I was in there because somebody must have pulled me out because the only next conscious thing, I mean, I can say there was infinity. Mind stopped completely. Joy was there. And suddenly I'm standing outside and somebody took my hand again. There was a lot of, and they held my hand and they put this orange sweet into it. And I can remember thinking, I have infinity and there's a boiled sweet. And my brain just went again, you know, for hours it went again. And people took me under their wing, and there was 24 hours or more when I just wasn't in my body at all. But people moved me from pillar to post. I was put up in a hotel. Well, first of all, I was taken down the hill and given tea and food. And I have moments when I can remember. I remember meeting Heather Nadell. I remember meeting Bao Kalturi. And then there's a big blank. And then I'm sitting at a table in the Sabloke Hotel. And I know all the people that were around that table. And it felt to me like the Last Supper. It was very weird. That's how much Christ consciousness was in the room. It was just incredible. And then nothing else again. And then I'm standing on the roof of the hotel in the next morning and it's raining. And then somebody says, we're going to Meherazad. I didn't know what that meant at all. And then the very next thing I remember is Barry Alpert showing me into Barbara's bedroom.
At Meherazad.
At Meherazad, yeah. And because it was the Christmas day, all the pilgrims that were there, and there were loads, were lining up for their prasad in the garden. And Barry Alpert took me around the back side and he pulled the curtain back at the door and he said, you go in, and just put me into the room where Barbara's bed was. And my God, it was just like my grandfather's bedroom. It was just incredible. And I felt when I knelt down at Barbara's bed that he said to me internally, what took you so long? You know, like he'd been waiting for me to come back, you know, and it was just, so perfect. Completely perfect. It still is, thankfully it still is completely perfect. You know, everybody's journey to Baba is perfect. Everybody's is individual. And he had to drag me blindfold because my ego was too big, my will was too angry, my history was too messed up. And that was the only way he was going to get me there. He had to sort of be a bit mischievous and sort of trick me into doing it. But, you know, thank you, Barbara. Thank you for listening. Oh, God, Jeff's crying. Oh, God. We're both crying.
We're all crying.
Oh.
What a beautiful beloved.
He is. He is so perfect. He's everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. Everything. Isn't it?
We're perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect. We're the imperfect part of his perfection. So I can answer any questions anybody's got, but that's the bottom line.
How long did you stay?
Oh, that's a great question, really. I had 5 weeks left on my visa, and I stayed 5 weeks minus 5 minutes. Literally. I got the very last plane out from Delhi that I could have got in the time my visa was valid. And then I was back about 5 months later.
How old were you then?
30. Yeah.
And what about the people you had left? Did they?
Oh my God, that was the story. They found my abandoned rucksack on my, in the hotel.
With the big clothes?
Well,
No
actually
cell
had
phone.
no cell phone in those days. So after I went to Meherazad the following morning, Flag Chris, who some of you old timers may know, took me on the bus, put me on the bus back to Aurangabad. And the hotel people said, your friends left with your rucksack there at the railway station. You're on a train to Mysore. I went running down the platform. The train was supposed to be coming in at 8 p.m. or something like that. And they were sitting looking so forlorn. And I had this ridiculous grin on my insanely intoxicated face. And I just said, I'm sorry, I'm not coming any further. I'm at the end of my journey. I said,
I just
see you in Yorkshire. See you in Yorkshire in 5 weeks' time.
What about the knapsack?
Yeah, I rescued all those size 16 clothes that didn't fit me. Never fitted me anyhow.
Wasn't your passport in the knapsack?
Yes, of course.
God.
No, I did. I took the knapsack back. And they traveled on with, throughout India, and they did meet up with their Indian family for the first time in their lives. They were refugees from the Second World War. They had a whole other story that was incredible. And they both their kids came to Baba. They didn't in their lifetime, but both their son and daughter did.
Oh.
Yeah. And some other people. It just went on and on. It was like a wave effect. Yeah, it was pretty remarkable, really.
So how did, when you got back to England, then you saw Dudley.
Dudley, yeah.
And then you kind of connected with the whole Baba family there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I wrote a letter to Dudley straight away from India. That's all you could do in those days. I tried going to phone him, but I spent 3 hours at the exchange and I still hadn't got a phone to phone him. So I sent a letter to him, and bless his heart, he went to the hippie shop in Yorkshire and he bought this Indian notepaper with hand-printed stamps all over it. And he wrote me a lovely letter back, so it was like India meets India. And he said, I just knew it. I knew I was right. I knew you were Babas. And he was over the moon. And we're still very, very, very dear friends, of course. And there's been lots of, extensions of that relationship, and lots of, he just, like the UK Barber Group just put out a CD, 50th anniversary, Darshan anniversary for Barber, and Dudley, who was my contact, did the artwork for that. So if you've seen that CD, you've seen his artwork with Barber sitting in the tree as he was in Nasik. So yeah, he's definitely there, very much in my life.
Can you say anything about your how you like to remember Baba in your life?
Oh, Jeff.
doesn't have to, you only have to say what you feel
Yeah.
comfortable about.
I just try to have him here so that whatever I'm doing, he's in doing it with me. I'm doing it in his company. You know, it's like you can't ever think you're doing anything for Barbara, but I like to think I'm doing everything with Barbara as my close buddy. You know, he's really my close buddy. And he gets around. Yeah, he feels very intimate. Yeah. Even when I get things wrong and I screw up and I know I've displeased him, it still feels very sweet. Yeah.
And have you, any
Sorry.
questions?
Yeah,
I have a question for you, sweetie.
go for
First
it.
off, it's a beautiful story. That's me.
Thank you, Lanita. I see you now. I was looking on the screen for you.
So first off, it's such a beautiful story. I cried too. You know, and it was amazing. I can't believe it that you went through so much.
I still can't believe it.
And I want to know if do you have that experience of perfection again, other times than you've been to Baba's bedroom or Samadhi or whatever, I mean, close to Baba's energy or Baba's love? I'm just curious to see if you continue having that perfection
By
feeling.
his grace. Yeah. Not in the, like at that time, in that honeymoon phase, it was intense and it lasted for a very long time. I do still get it, thankfully, and thank Baba for, and it takes me by surprise. My preoccupation, my sadhana, if you like, is gardening. And when I'm gardening, it's a bit like that experience. Yeah.
Do you feel anything like that here in Myrtle Beach?
Oh, yeah.
Baba's bedroom,
Bit too intense here.
in the
I'm
garden?
like, can you see this color in my cheeks? I'm like, yeah.
Good.
Everywhere on the center. Baba's so present.
So
And in
present.
everyone, he's so present, not just the center, everything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like for you meeting Mara, Mani, or any Arch or any of the other Mani for the first time when you were there?
I was very, 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 so much in awe of Mara that I was terrified. You know, I know that's my ignorance, but I couldn't speak around her. Nearly the whole of that first trip, most of the second trip, I couldn't believe people could just talk to her like she was a normal person. Of course, we know she wasn't a normal person, but I mean, I couldn't be natural with her because I was so in awe of her. And so I couldn't speak.
I mean, was that because of what you felt coming from her?
I guess some of it must have been what I felt coming from her, but it's also because I knew she was Barbara's beloved, and I felt so unworthy. I felt unworthy to even have had Barbara come to me in the way he did, and I couldn't. It took a very, very, very long time for me to accept that he'd accepted me. So I was still grappling with that, and to let Mara in as well would have been like, wow, you know, I felt too small a vessel to even imagine that, you know. Thankfully, later, you know, years later, I felt more comfortable with her, and I did manage to sit at her tea table when she had her little ladies' teas, but I was still the one that didn't say anything. But I wasn't feeling quite so awkward. I could at least be more relaxed. Yeah. wasn't so hard with Marnie. She felt more familiar.
What about Erich? What
I
kind of
absolutely
exchanges?
adored Erich. Oh my God. I wanted to tuck myself under his arm. And he was so sweet, so loving. And the very first time I was there, Rick Chapman was out there. So he made me feel comfortable by saying, brother Rick and sister Sue, because we were both Chapman. And he sort of squished us together in Munderley Hall. And Rick played along with it. You know, he was very intelligent. I mean, after all he'd been through with Barbara and in Barbara, and then the years he'd been with Barbara, he still was really gracious and sweet to me as the new kid on the block. So that was very, very endearing and very sweet of Erich to do that. Really sweet.
What year was that? What year was that?
That
you
was
were
83, Rosalie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I guess Rainey has a question. Rainey.
Hello there.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, dear Barbara, dear.
Dear Baba. I wanted to ask about various workshops. Did you mean craft shops that you would go to with the couple all over?
Yes.
By
Yeah, she
craft shops
she
and all
was,
the Indian
yeah.
craft? Yes.
She was a textile weaver and he was a potter.
Oh,
And we went out to loads of rural places, including tribal villages up in the Kutch, where we slept in mud huts and all kinds of crazy stuff. It was amazing.
and so is that how you developed your interest in archiving and ended up living in India and being sort of the archival advisor?
One of them, very minor one, I might say. But yes, yeah, that was how it all started.
It developed.
So Barbara was really laying all the groundwork many, many years ago. Yeah, I used to teach it in high school.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to mention about the Fred?
Oh,
that-
yeah.
No.
This is, yeah, just giving me a little hint to share something with you that's exciting, that's happening right this minute. One of the reasons I came to America this trip was because we re-tracked down Fred Mark's archive journals and diaries. He, for those of you who don't know, Fred Marks was a very elderly, early English disciple of Meher Baba. He was a Christian mystic, and he went to the Three Incredible Weeks and the Darshan in 64, wasn't it? And the East-West Gathering.
62.
62.
But also here, wasn't he in England in the 50s as well?
He
right?
was, yeah. And something like 50 years ago, he'd lent all his writings for some journals that were, you know, making articles. And then he passed away and it was forgotten that they were in America. And so they've come back and I've been reading them and they're absolutely incredible. So we're going to try and put together a book about Fred Marks. So that's another of my preoccupations for the moment. And if anybody's got any stories about him that they want to share, put them in an email to me, please. Because some of you may have met him over the years.
I love the film that Pete Townsend did about him. It's so
Beautiful.
just very special. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in India when I think Matthew brought him in 76. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, he used to always have a Band-Aid on his head because he was so tall and the rickshaw was banging. Yeah.
Oh,
But he was
sweet.
like, one time I performed for Mara and he went, "You should be on television." He was really, I don't know, just like innocence about, just the innocence. Yeah, very, very
Very
sweet.
humble. Very
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
Very sweet man. So did you by any chance witness him riding in Baba's Tonga up to the Samadhi, which is a story I've heard from that visit?
Natanga, I just
Okay.
remember him being in rickshaws. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to keep asking about that one. Somebody must have seen it and taken a photograph.
Yeah. You know who might know it? Laurel Wenger that lives
Oh.
in town. Laurel McGreeny.
Okay, I'll ask her.
Yeah, because
Thank
she
you.
was around. She was around. Yeah, yeah. As
Thank
a matter of fact, he was there on Mara's birthday because I performed with her under the tin shed, you know, across from Ansari's kitchen on Mara's birthday.
Great. That's lovely.
And he was there. Yeah, she would know. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for that. I will follow up on that.
Yeah.
It makes me think if it's you're talking December 76, Rosalie?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was thinking of January 76, that there might have been footage from the Australians. Might have some footage if you could ask Gussie as well.
I will do.
They always went at that time of year.
Okay, Rain, thank you.
But there were Australians because I was staying with Sue Fowler in Mayher Colony.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Sue was there.
I'll put the word out and
A
ask
whole
them.
bunch. In fact, that's when I met Francis Brabazon.
Wow.
And Sam Saunders must have been there too, but I never got introduced. I don't know. But they gave a fabulous concert. If you were there, that he could have raised the roof of the Mandalay Hall. It was just fabulous. Yeah.
Great.
So I was thinking that Felix Schmid or would have.
He was there.
Might have something, so David and Gussie would have access to that, Sue.
That's a great idea. I'll drop them a line. Thank you. Because I think the more photographs, the better.
Anyone else have any questions about her life with Baba?
Sue, I have a question. It's
Yeah.
Marta.
Marta,
Hi, Sue. What is do you have children, or are you by yourself, or how's your life? You're by yourself?
I live by myself, Marta, in Northern England.
I wanted to ask you then, you said Baba's right here. Well, that you may know what that means, but could you like tear that down a little step by step for me? Does that mean you're saying Baba's name? Do you do the prayers? Do you talk to Baba? I mean, how does that manifest in the everyday practical life of being with Baba? Could you explain that a little bit for me?
Sure, I do. I do talk to him. If there was a fly on the wall in my house, they'd think there was a mad lady living there because their lips are often moving. I talk to him as if he was with me in the house. Not always out loud, but internally, sometimes out loud. I do pray, but I'm not I don't pray all day, every day, but there's a place I walk every day, and that's where I do my prayers. Baba's pictures all around. I work with Baba's archives. I work with the Baba Association in London. So I'm constantly backwards and forwards with emails and letters with people. It's, in fact, it's a good thing I'm retired because I'm not retired, if that makes sense.
You're working for Baba now.
Pretty much, yeah.
So Sue, also the other thing I want to ask you, okay, so when you have a dilemma, how do you process that with Baba? What's your personal way of kind of processing your stuff with Baba?
Oh gosh. I guess it depends what it is.
Do you take it to him and talk to him, or do you just ask his help, or you just give it to put it at his feet, or all of that, all of the above?
All of the above, yeah, I do. And I've learned to do something which has helped with me is like, I used to be an impulse-driven person and would not give myself time to stop and reflect. And now I'm much more likely, for example, if conflict comes through an email to me, I might sit and draft the reply straight away, but I always put it in the drafts folder and sleep on it and come back to it and say to Barbara, is this the right answer to be making? You know, so that was something, I can't remember if it was Don Stevens or somebody else who talked about the place of neutrality between what you receive and what you give, that there's a place to reflect between the two where you can kind of try and balance the head and the heart a bit more. I'm not always good at it. I make lots of mistakes. I screw up all the time and I get angry and do all the things everybody else does whenever they, you know, get lost in themselves. So I'm not, don't hold up anything I do as an example for anybody else.
No, I'm just always curious how people love Baba, remember Baba. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question, Marta.
Yeah, it was. Thank
Seems
you.
like Tina has a question.
Hi, Jaisimna.
I just wanted to ask you what you did for work. You said you're retired, and if you had any Baba friends at work.
No, I've gone through my entire life without any Baba friends at work or in the geographical places I've lived. The nearest Baba lover to me lives 120 miles away. So that's a challenge in itself, but I think that's probably in some ways how my inner connection to him's got stronger, because I can't rely on having it fed by anyone else. The other part of the question, when I gave up working as an art teacher, I became a therapist, body worker, and then a counseling therapist. And I did that until I retired. I'm not sure if I answered all the bits of the question there, but come back to me if I didn't.
Seems like Tony has another question.
Hi, Sue.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to meet you this way.
Oh, there you go. Tony, hi.
Yeah,
Couldn't find you for a moment.
I was so moved by your story, so deeply moved. And especially lately, I have been so longing to get back to Baba's Samadhi. And it became especially poignant when I learned that they've now opened the doors so that you can go and take Darshan, but there's still COVID and travel, and your story brought me there. It brought me right in there, and I was there, and thank you.
Thank you, Baba, for enabling me to somehow do that with you.
So beautiful, so much Baba's presence in that story.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
Also, I've heard your name for years, and I was sure I knew you, and I'm from the energy. I'm sure we were in India at the same time, whether we ever met.
Very
but
possibly.
I sense that. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we're all feeling that about all of ourselves, aren't we? I just feel as if since Zoom's come in, it's like everybody knows everybody, and we suddenly realize that we're getting better at doing that somehow. Yeah, thank you.
Jai Baba.
And I hope you do get there soon.
Thank you.
But I can't recommend all the testing you have to do to fly. It's been a nightmare. Hello, Lenita.
So I want to mention to now that Tony said that, and I felt the same way. You know, I felt that I was there.
Baba, thank you.
I felt that I was right there in the Samadhi. You took me there, like with Tony. We are side by side, and you took us. You know, it's very moving. It was like, and I also felt like it's just the way you described things, your emotional, you know, sensibility about the whole story is like, it's just that Baba was so present. You kept Baba's presence in this story that you tell, because I'm sure he's still there the same way you felt, you know, in that day there, in that very special day. I'm sure Baba is still with you the same way he presented himself to you, you know. Like you said, he blindfolded me and he took me there. He just threw you there. And Yeah, it was a lot of feeling of Baba and the presence of the Samadhi was so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
thought I saw you there, Lenita.
There's room for everybody. Oh,
Yes, thank you. Jai Baba.
thank you, Jai Baba.
Baba.
So I had something else that came to my mind when I heard your story a few weeks ago when we broke out into groups with Jeff Afternoon Tea. And I wanted to say that if I ever doubted, which I pray I never do again, that Baba is taking care of everything. Your story is the most dramatic example. I don't know where your mind was. You had no resistance. You just kept going. You didn't worry about food, which of course I'd be the first thought I'd have. Water, what were you going to do? You had no money. I mean, it was like amazing. And he just took you and you just, every part of the whole way until you, even when you bowed down, I mean, he really wanted you badly. And he did everything for you. And so that's just an example, to me, Baba's doing everything. So relax. I mean, look at his story and it's just so perfect. Like you said, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Baba.
Yeah.
Wow.
Any
Jeff.
other
This
thing?
man probably needs to get to
No,
bed.
no, I'm fine.
No, it's still early for him.
Hours.
Yeah, he's still early.
Hi, Sue. I'm Diane from
Hey, Diane. Hey, Diane. I think I've seen you before in a group, haven't I? Nice to see you again. And Terry.
Right on. Your story, I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And that includes me especially. But the energy that you got from placing your head on the Samadhi and that initial honeymoon period, I think we all know about. So I have a couple questions. Is how do you keep that over the last many decades since you've done that, since that happened to you? And then when you get into, you said you've had a really challenging life, divorce and challenges like that. How do you work with Baba when it's almost like, Baba, this is too hard, this is too painful, this is too much suffering? How do you get through it?
I was going to say it in jest, but the jest is true. God alone knows. It's like every human being is suffering intensely whilst also being fully alive in and with Baba. And he was that also. It seems to me his suffering was intense and he loved everybody infinitely, intensely, continually. And there's no separation between the one and the other. So if the mind part of me can remember that in the midst of anything, like my roof blew off 2 weeks before I came here, and then the power lines went down 2 days later. And it was like, oh, does that mean I'm not supposed to go to America? Or what does it mean, Baba? In the midst of all that, no power and rain coming through the roof and God knows what. And it's like, that's all, it's everything. If we believe him, everything is illusion and it'll all pass, So all I do is look at the next thing that's in front of me, the next moment or the next day, and what I can do with that, and just give it all to him. I don't, because if I try and stand back and think, have I got any answers? No, I just respond and try and keep him in the response or look for him in the response, whichever way it is. I'm never sure whether it's me looking at him or him showing me, or which it is. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I guess Linda had a question. Linda, did you have a question too?
Yes, thank you. Hi,
Oh,
Sue.
hi, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Again, I've seen you before too, haven't I?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I was going to
One of
ask.
the breakout workshops last year.
Oh,
it's a long
wonderful.
time ago.
Oh, wonderful. How fun that you remember.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you know Jane Hoskins and okay, and Wayne and
Yes.
Wayne Smith, and I'm the secretary of Beads on One String. So I was going to tell you, definitely contact Jane, because they've worked intimately with Don Stevens' archive, and maybe there's material there that you could be of use to you for your book.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Want to support that. Jane and David have just stepped down from the archive committee, but Wayne is now spearheading it. So
okay,
they would all be very, very willing to talk with you. And then I wanted to tell you that, you know, there's always, at least if you're lucky and alert, a little tidbit that you take away from each person's story. And yours was after your story when you said, and it's very meaningful to Rainey too, we are talking about it in the chat, when you said, I used to be a more impulsive person. And that is so true, that carefulness and being mindful and listening for Baba, we can't just live impulsively. So that's my thing that I'm taking deeply in, that you have given us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I love your generous stories of how you daily live with Baba too. That is so sweet. And how's your roof? What happened?
Well, they slapped a couple of emergency ridge tiles on so I could come away, but that's waiting for me to go back and sort.
I love that reminder to ourselves. You know, it is all illusion, you know, so to live wholeheartedly in illusion is a tricky thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I've got L plates on my back. Hey.
Diane, Terry.
Hi again. I have more questions. What brought you to Northern England? Because it sounds a little isolating. Sounds gorgeous. And then second is the whole concept of illusion. I always have a hard time with, because does that mean like we're in like that Jim Carrey movie, The Truman episode?
Yeah, that's it.
That's a good analogy.
That's it, Diane. We're trying to get out of
another movie.
world.
I can answer the Northern England question more easily than the second one, let me tell you. So unemployment and being made redundant from a job in one place drove me to somewhere else, where I said I'd stay 6 months, and I've been there 22 years, which is a bit frightening, but it's very beautiful. That helps. Yeah. The illusion.
Well, I mean, but I mean, you, even though it's an illusion, you're giving it your loving best.
Yeah, there is that side to it, that we have to play our part, and as long as we remember we're playing our part wholeheartedly, we do the best we can do, not be attached to what happens, you know, good or bad, not even judge it, you know, because that's also the risk, isn't it? That you do something and you start to appraise it immediately, especially if you've got a critical mind like mine. Oh, how did I do that? Was that good? Was that bad? To try not even to do that, but just let it go, you know. But I'm probably not, I'm not somebody who can.
Well, I mean, it's like love makes illusion bearable.
That's lovely. Jeff, if you didn't hear that, Jeff just said love makes illusion bearable. And I think that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not somebody who can do the
You've done great.
esoteric stuff. I know lots of people who can. I'm not one of them.
You resonated with me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm just amazed anybody's still there on the screen. It's so sweet that people showed up and listened, and thank you.
I'm going to have to take her in.
I'm on center.
Prakash has one question, Jeff.
Go on.
Yeah.
Prakash.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, go on. Oh, was
Jai
your
Baba
question
Stu.
for Jeff? Jai Baba.
No question really. I just wanted to say hello to you virtually. I met you on the center the other day
Prakash, yes.
and wanted to get you to tell us a story right there, but it didn't happen. So I just want to thank you for sharing your story on this channel today. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, and thank you for logging in, and thank you for those wonderful chocolate chip cookies we had in the cabin. That was the best.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, dear. Okay, Jeff's coming in here now.
Yeah, I'm just she's getting close to curfew. But I mean, if there are any other questions, I'm very happy to step out and let her come back in this seat. If there are anything that comes up, but boy, it was a very touching story. It's amazing, you know, how this must be so fun for Baba to orchestrate this whole thing. You know, to see someone, you know, reel someone in the way he did. It's just beautiful. Yeah, so let's have I'm going to let her sit here and have a couple.
Marsha has a question. Marsha.
Oh, Marsha, yeah.
Oh, I see the hand up.
Are you there?
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm getting ready to fly to Myrtle Beach tomorrow, and Baba really beats you down before you get there. I'm like, oh my God, everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Yeah.
But then I kind of have to go with the flow, right?
Marsha, how's your roof?
My roof is fine. It's just,
good.
It's my back. And then I misplaced my passport. I don't know if I packed it or not. It's like,
good.
anyway.
I'll see you soon. Bob, I'm going to have Sue sit in here and we'll have a few moments of silence before we go on. You go ahead and sit.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Jai Baba. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba
Ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba
Ki Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Is Nasreen there?
Yes, she is.
Okay, well, we end with Nasreen. Okay, Nasreen, go for it.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Well,
Jao.
hey, let me mention Angela.
Baba.
Angela's going to tell her story next Sunday.
Oh, great.
And her kind of vision of this, Baba, Zoom.net and everything. So, and come with your questions too. And so, yeah, that'll be coming up. You guys, I didn't see it from your side. I didn't get to see you all, but boys, a whole bunch of you here.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, anyway, much love.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Baba.
Jai Baba. There. Oh, wow.
Jai
yeah.
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai
Yeah.
Baba.
Thank you, Sue.
Baba. Jai Baba.
Good to see all of you. Wow.
Don't go away. Good to see you.
Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. Wayne Myers there. Dinku was there. Namrata. Oh, Namrata was there.
Etsion's there, isn't he?
Jai Baba.
Etsion from Israel. Yeah.
Jai Baba, Etsion.
Beautiful.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.